It's Real Fridays. Every Friday at 12:30, it's Real Fridays, where we talk about mortgage, housing, and real estate, and everything and all things related to just advancing home ownership, but in a very real way. We'd like to dig into market headlines, industry rumors, that are appropriate to talk about, and just inside details as to what the future direction is at home ownership. And so we have obviously Jeremy Potter, leading lawyer and friend, and the best hair in mortgage, and myself, Rick Rock, who's an executive with NFM, but also just a focused mortgage banker in this business. And we have a man that does not look like Brock Cassidy because he's not going to be available. John Tallinger, who's an executive and senior leader at Class Valuation, to talk about the future of appraisals and whether or not they're needed.
Happy Friday, gentlemen.
One of the most connected people in the whole industry, right, JT? I think that's how I would say it. Connected, helping everybody, connecting everybody. You're doing your thing. It's really great.
I'm trying, just fighting the good fight. Just connecting people one by one, and hoping good things happen.
But, well, so far so good.
Rick, you got me thinking. I mean, I'm like, best hair in the industry. I'm like, Jeremy's hair is pretty good. And I'm trying to think about, there's not many. It's an impressive collection of lettuce you got there, my friend.
Well, I'll take it because I need all the compliments I can get after 40 years old. You'll take them. But I don't know, man. I'd rather be known for something else. But that's okay. I'll take it. If I could have some success and innovation, I would take that. But for now, on a Friday out of the office, I'll take any compliment I can get. So I appreciate it. And I'm wearing my Grayson as well. I'm supporting the home team, the good guys.
I love it. I'm actually putting in an order for a client right now. They needed some things for an event, and I'm going to get them some Grayson stuff. And
yeah, if you're doing anything around mortgage and golf and you want Grayson apparel, we'll do a spot. We'll do a plug for them. You should be
my favorite company, man. Charlie and Ben, all those guys are the best.
Right on. Absolutely.
Now, what course are you going to be playing on?
It's a course called Treetops is the name of the 4 courses that are all here. The masterpiece is the course we're playing today, and then we'll play tomorrow and Sunday, and then go home.
Jeremy is a sneaky good golfer. He got a very nice swing. He's got a very nice golf bag too, doesn't he?
I have the best golf bag in the entire area, man. Thanks to JT, Rick.
The first time I took him golfing, at my club, the guy that kind of works there, that takes your clubs from the car, he went to pick up Jeremy's bag, and the strap ripped. The handle ripped right off. The bag was from Ty Cobb's era, or Ben Hogan's era. So we got him a nice new Orchard Lake bag.
You sure did. And I tell everybody about it. I was like, let me tell you about this bag and this course. My favorite. Yeah. My favorite club in the area.
What's your favorite regional course in Michigan, JT? Because I wouldn't mind. I'm going to be traveling off and on more and more to Detroit. I wouldn't mind hitting the course more regularly.
Yeah, anytime. There's a ton of great. It just depends on what you're looking for. I'm partial. The club I joined a club kind of during COVID. Great family club. It's on a beautiful lake. It's called Orchard Lake Country Club. Place is great. Greens are fast. People are great. Course is really nice. If you want a real challenge, Oakland Hills is difficult, and it's a lot of fun, and it's close by. There's a ton though. Michigan, fun fact, Michigan has more golf courses than any state in the United States.
I know of 2 other states that actually claim the same thing. So it's kind of interesting how
they're just liars.
It's always upper Midwest. It's Michigan, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. They all say the same thing.
Well, only one can be king, So, but yeah, there's tons of great ones up here. Whatever you're looking for, you want the best hangout, we can find that. You want the most challenging golf. You want,
Now, does Ishbia play golf?
No, he doesn't play anymore. When we were younger, he did. Even still, in the working days, he did a little bit. Problem with Matt is that he's the most competitive person you'll ever meet, and was actually a pretty good golfer. But he's great at basketball. He's great at a lot of other sports that he played. And if he can't be great at something and first of all, he doesn't have enough time to golf. He doesn't have. This guy blocks out every 5 minutes of his schedule like no one you've ever seen. He's the most efficient user of his time of anyone I've ever met. But 4 or 5 hours, that would be too long for him to spend out there. Maybe one day we can get him back out there. But he was actually pretty good. But if he can't be great at it, he probably don't want to do it. He's too competitive for that.
So let's talk about mortgage. What just any headlines this week? What do you track, JT? What comes across your? You are the largest AMC in the country, right? Class valuation. So,
yeah. So
how many transactions is? How many is that? What makes you the number one as far as by volume? Like how many transactions annually do you guys use?
Yeah, I guess the only real way to track it easily, because probably the easiest way to track it is submissions to the GSEs, which I don't think they go out and publish that, but we've got a pretty good idea where we stand, and we've grown massively, in terms of just organic growth, but we've also done a bunch of inorganic growth. We've done a bunch of M&A. We've done 21 acquisitions now in the last 2.5 years. And they've gotten more strategic and more focused, and they've gotten really good over time. We've done some data and some tech acquisitions as well. But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, each day we're getting between like 2,500 and 3,500 new orders, and so each one of those needs to get processed, with accepted by an appraiser, and it gets into the pipeline, and it moves pretty quickly. So what we track, we don't really live too much. We don't pay that much attention to rates. Obviously, for everyone in the industry, rates where they are today, just volume's relatively slow. There's not a ton of. There's maybe some more inventory picking up right now, but it's been sluggish for everyone, I would say, in terms of like mortgage apps, and for us in terms of orders. But everyone's kind of waiting for rates at some point to get below 6 and things to kind of pick up a little bit. For us, it's kind of interesting because when it's slow in a market like this, appraisals aren't a problem for anyone. Turn times aren't a problem. Everyone's getting appraisals done in 5, 6, 7 days right now. Appraisers are calling us looking for more work, but that can flip pretty quickly. If rates in 2 months got to 5.75. I think we'd all see a huge pickup in volume, and candidly, you would start to see appraisal turn time start to extend in a lot of different markets. So we just kind of track what's and then there's all sorts of lots of HELOCs in some alternative products these days. So we do all sorts of different products depending on what clients or what lenders are looking for. But yeah, it's been relatively slow for us in terms of there hasn't been those huge spikes, and a lot of that has been rate dependent.
You talk to a lot of people out on the front line. So you're meeting with like sales companies, mortgage broker companies, mortgage brokers, MLOs, kind of all day, every day tapped into that. It seems like what are they asking you the most, or what are they talking about the most? That's the hottest topics or trends.
So, so much for us, it's trying to really ask how can we be more than just the company that does appraisals for you? How can we truly be a partner? For us, we know, speed, service, like the things that never go out of style in the mortgage space and in the life cycle of a loan. We're always looking for how can we help make you better? How can we help you trim a day or two off of your loan cycle? How can we get that appraisal back to you faster? How can we create more efficiencies? How can we help you save money on underwriting so you don't have to hire? What can we do on our end? And then really, like me and kind of the way I operate and some of the other people I work with, a lot of it is we're constantly trying to, how can we help you? How can we help you grow? I have I got an email today from the guy that runs sales at AFR, and he's looking to grow. There's specific markets where he's looking for salespeople, and so I'm trying to match him up with some people I know that are really good, that I'm familiar with, that have a good track record. So that's kind of like my day. Part of the problem is I was the first employee 15 years ago when we started the company, and ever since then, every single person I meet, hey, here's my card, here's my number, call me, anything you need. And that's really easy, like the first 5 years as you're like growing, and then you get to our size and scale. Part of the problem is I still want to be available, but I can't get in the weeds and solve everyone's problem. So like right now, I just got a text right before we jumped on. Someone's looking for a reconsideration of value. Appraisal purchase price is 306. Appraisal came in at 250, and they think it's worth somewhere in between. They submitted some comps, and so we're kind of reviewing them. And They want to know how quickly we can get it back to them. So try not to get too far into the weeds on a lot of the stuff, but also need to make yourself available. So that's where having great teams around you and being able to delegate, sort of like air traffic controller, is probably the only thing that I do well.
I didn't realize who's your investment partner again. I know we met when I was at cross country. We met with them.
Gridiron Capital.
Yeah, Gridiron, and because it's always interesting. When somebody asked me the question recently, like, what does innovation look like in appraisals, right? Because there's nothing more kind of foundational to the whole mortgage process, obviously, than an appraisal. But so it's kind of a bedrock kind of component to how you underwrite and assess any risk to a loan that you do. So how do you, not so much how do you get rid of it, but how do you transform it? How do you elevate it? Because innovation isn't like, well, we got appraisals down from 6 days to 4 days. That's just sort of an incremental improvement, or we go from like, it's a 5-page appraisal down to a 3-page appraisal. Like, what's disruptive when it comes to appraisals, and what do you think has prevented that from really moving like the needle on? Because we do the same way. Appraisals are done the same way almost today that we did them 25 years ago.
Yep. So it's a great question. Well, first, so you think about like on the mortgage side, you guys had trade rollout. Like every handful of years, you'll have something new that comes in that changes the way that they standardize things, and it is a pretty big change that everyone needs to prepare for, and there's going to be a kind of a adjustment period. For us right now, one of the big things coming down the pipeline is UAD 3.6. So it's the forms that like the appraisal form that you guys are used to. Essentially, it's UAD is the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. For today, currently, it's all on what's called UAD 2.6. And it's essentially the same set of appraisal forms with some minor tweaks here and there, but the same set of forms that appraisers have been using for 3 decades, right? That's changing. It's starting actually like in the next couple months. It starts in kind of like July, and it's kind of a progression to, I think, early Q4 of 26, when everything's going to switch over. So everyone, they'll be able to use both or either or for a while, but once you switch to this new set of this new data set 3.6, it's a complete forms redesign, and it's really it's going to be a big adjustment period, and I think it's a big opportunity for innovation to start to kind of step in. The forms are going to be more standardized, and all of this is so that they can, you're still going to receive a PDF copy of the appraisal, but there's a couple different formats that the appraisals delivered in. One of them is really so that the GSEs can pull all that data out of there and really have the maximum amount of data in their black box to be able to make collateral decisions. So the other piece is, you're right, Rick. Today, the best, I've used this like a million times, this comparison, but you imagine appraisals today are still, they're very archaic. It's like when you go to the dentist. Imagine if Rick, if you needed to go and see your dentist and get clean and get a checkup, it'd be like if you called today and Dr. Smith answers the phone, sets your appointment. Then when you come in, he welcomes you and asks if you want any water, and then he comes in and cleans your teeth, does the whole thing. Imagine if the dentist was doing, and then he does your billing and everything after. That's essentially how appraisals, for the most part, are still being done today. And we just haven't really bifurcated that process. And it's really all these different things that the appraiser do today aren't necessarily the highest and best use. It's not leveraging tech the way that we should be. So probably about 10% of the appraisals that we do today at Class are somehow or another, they're either a hybrid, they're a desktop, or they're like an inspection-based waiver. So where we're actually not sending the appraiser, we're sending a non-appraiser to the property to collect the data, to essentially do the inspection piece. And that's kind of the future of where appraisals are headed. Jeremy and I can see Jeremy smiling because we've been talking about this for years. All these things they're coming, they're down the road, they're going to happen, and you're waiting until they finally actually happen. So earlier this year, Fannie and Freddie both put desktop hybrid, into policy, and so they're available today. So when you pull your findings on a loan right now, you're going to see in so many instances, requires a traditional, requires a 1004 appraisal. So you didn't get a waiver, so it requires 1004 appraisal. But if you go like 3 or 4 lines further down, it says also eligible for desktop. But right now, those are essentially taking the same amount of time. Appraisals are getting done pretty quickly right now, and so it's hard to get adoption for some of the methods that would allow us to save time and create more efficiencies, because they're essentially the same cost right now, and it's the same turn time. And people generally today, if you give them the choice, they're going to go with what they know. They're just going to say, well, just give me the full regular traditional appraisal. We'll have the appraiser go to the house and everything like that, because it's why would you risk something the unknown? As time goes on, let's say in 6 months, we're at a spot where rates are at 5.75 or 5.5. Appraisers are going to be swamped. They're going to be much busier. So those 5 or 6 day turn times are going to be 8, 9, 10, 12 day turn times in some markets, and everyone's going to be fighting for, lenders are going to be fighting. Hey, how do I get this back faster? I'm being shopped to get someone who can get it back faster. And so that's where the hybrid, the bifurcated appraisal that we're talking about, that's in policy now, that's when those are going to really start to become scalable, and we can still deliver those in that 5-6 day range. Make sense, Jeremy?
Yeah, JT, that's spot on, man. I did not, when I moved into the product innovation space, Rick, Class was one of the first companies I worked with. John and I met at that time. JT and I worked together. And what I didn't appreciate at the time was what data and technology mean in the context of this process. I was thinking what technology is capable of, what data can tell us about the house. What I didn't appreciate was you have to have a foundation of uniform data that the regulator, that the investor can work off of before you can layer in the stuff that we got to now. And it took 5 years, it took 6 years to get uniform data and uniform tech to a point where you can actually start to do this. But in 2018, 2019, I was watching essentially the healthcare community. My best friend was going through like a healthcare issue, and they were sending his imaging of his body to Colorado, and some tech, some specialist in Colorado was like viewing his body, viewing his images, sending it back to Cleveland and having his treatment. And I'm sitting there at Rocket going, hold on a second.
Wow.
We can look at a human body from thousands of miles away and make diagnoses and make these very complex decisions. And a house can't be more complicated than the human body. Like, I know houses are unique, but come on. And so at the time, I was like, why does the appraiser need to stand in the house? The doctor, the specialist, doesn't need to stand in the room while my friend got his scans, got his treatment. And so that was like the analogy I've been using ever since. Was like, we use specialists, we use doctors, we use surgeons for their highest, best expertise. And appraisers step up, and then we feed them the data through technology that they need to be the experts. I think that's where it's going, Rick, is we need you doing these very, very precise, difficult analyses and choices. We're going to feed you the information that you need. And they're going to look more like those types of experts and specialists than when JT first started. He was wandering around with a clipboard and measuring tape.
Well, I think that was sort of the question, and kind of you answered the question, Jeremy, without me having to ask it, and that's sort of the implication of AI on appraisals, right? In the sense that very similarly, the days of a specialist, I think this is sort of the common theme across whether it's a loan officer, a doctor, a teacher, like all of a sudden the days of going to a single specialist who has all the knowledge and information about a specific product or service are really shifting away from the individual, because all of a sudden all that knowledge is being disseminated and it's becoming much more accessible, right? In other words, like because of AI, I coined sort of the term, velocity of decision making. It gives you all the information, and I'm not sure, is Jeremy just having tech issues? Is this what? Yeah,
he might. I think the tea time's probably pending, so I don't know how. We might not have him for. We might only have him for a portion of this year, which is okay. I respect that. So,
but you know what I mean? Like there's a disruption of the knowledge capital and who possesses that knowledge, and AI is driving that knowledge in a way where loan officers don't need to know all the products. They don't need to know all the guidelines. They don't need to know what's required on every application, because AI is going to do the analysis more accurately and more consistently and tell the consumer and quite frankly, tell the loan officer what's needed, right? And you have to think that there's going to be some kind of evolution and pretty dramatic impact that AI is going to have on appraisals in a way where it's not so dependent on the individual knowledge of what the respective appraiser knows or doesn't know, or are they on their game that day or are they not on their game that day? Because those decision makings are really what drive the assessment of risk and the observations of risk.
That's it. Exactly. You're 100% dead on. And so we try not to look at it. I mean, we've really gotten to the point now for so long, in our side of the business, it's a matter of like, hey, we're just going to get these appraisals, garbage in, garbage out, get them moving through the pipeline. We try to really take a much more global look at it now in terms of, okay, ultimately, what are they trying to solve for? Clients trying to solve for, they need collateral. They need to know exactly what this collateral looks like.
I think I got to Jeremy.
Yeah, no, we're good. We'll let him enjoy his day. We'll heckle him here and there from the course. I wish we had someone there. It would be great actually if we had a third party camera, someone from the group that was actually filming, and we could critique his shots as we go. Sort of around here. But yeah, it's yeah. So what we're always looking at is, okay, well, how can we help? So essentially, what are you trying to solve for? All right, you're trying to solve for. You need to make sure you have a risk-based decision to make. And you need to, you're selling this loan to this entity or this entity. What do we need to do to make sure that you're comfortable taking on this risk? They're comfortable taking on this risk. And for us now, it's gotten away from just doing the appraisals. Now it's really, hey, Brock, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, JT?
Much. Nice. We got Brock now. Jeremy literally just dropped off, so this is perfect. Brock Crafty.
I'm glad we timed it up. All my devices died. I'm on the road, but I'm online now. Sorry, JT.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I was just talking about what we're all trying to move towards is sounds cliche, but it's the truth. Like, okay, how do we as our company, and how do you as our lender partners, clients that we work with, how do we help you win the borrower experience? How do we help you get better at what you do? And like we said, the appraisal piece is really clunky right now, or it has been for kind of forever, and everyone is just used to it, so they just kind of accept it. But yeah, what if we can make it that much better? Jeremy and I, for years, when Jeremy was at Rocket, we've always talked about, hey, it just doesn't make so many things that don't make sense. It doesn't make sense that a house gets listed on the market, and Brock is interested in the house, and he goes and he makes an offer, gets accepted, goes to the loan process, gets pre-approved, goes through all these steps, and like the last piece at the very end of the process is like, okay, let's get an appraisal done, and like everyone's sitting there waiting, and it's extending that loan period. That's like the last thing that people are waiting for. And if the appraisal says that, hey, what your purchase price is the house is worth that or more, great, you're in good shape. If not, then for us, we're looking at it going, God, wouldn't it make sense to get the appraisal done up front? Like, so we know going into it what this value is, inspection at the point of listing. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me still that,
I think that's the first conversation we ever had when I was working on the real estate side at Rocket. Yep. And Jeremy was working on various pilots with you guys. I think exactly that topic was the first thing we ever spoke about. What is that, 8 years ago? Like, yeah, that's crazy. What progress has been made since then? I haven't been as close to it.
There's progress there. I don't know if I want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but there's progress. It's the tricky part there is you have a lot of stakeholders. You have, of course, not just the mortgage side. You start to bring in, the agents and the buyers and the listing side. But I mean, there's so many things that still don't make sense that we're trying to help solve for. When you think about, you need an appraisal for a property, and so you order it through the AMC. AMC gets the appraisal done, or the appraiser completes the report, submits to the AMC. AMC puts it through a whole litany of quality control reviews. Essentially, we want to make sure that file's pre-underwritten. But then at that point, we're delivering the appraisal to the lender. And then the lender, their underwriter's doing a whole separate QC. So we go back to the appraiser for revisions the first time, send it to the lender. Then the lender comes back and says, hey, we need more revisions done. And so we're always kind of trying to look at, man, do we really need to, especially at certain loans, do we really need the underwriter to go review the appraisal, or is that something we could maybe work with the end user? Maybe we're working directly with GSEs to somehow have it so the underwriter doesn't have to touch the appraisal at all. Who knows? We're trying to get to those places, but we're trying to find more efficiencies there to make it a more seamless process for the borrower and allow these, allow the originators to go close more loans faster.
See, that's what was interesting to me, JT, is that, you have obviously in the underwriting on the title side, title underwriting side, there's been a big push, at least on the Fannie Mae side with these test pilot programs of doing it like an algorithmic assessment of risk for the underwriting policy. So you could just issue an instantaneous, like an instant title policy allocation. And I don't know why AVMs haven't really, maybe it is just real estate is so micro and real estate is so particular, block by block, house by house, that you really can't, from a satisfactory standpoint, assess a quantifiable enough risk that's acute enough where you're not having to build in so much margin into to account for the latitude of risk that where it makes it affordable, where it's so acute where you don't have to build in the risk, because ultimately risk just means cost, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's investor cost or front end consumer cost. And
biggest problem you have is that you don't is that like this piece of collateral, it's high dollar amount, and you just can't tell from the outside. You can't tell without getting an interior view of a property what the condition is. If it's on par with the other similar houses in the neighborhood. Hey, did these people buy this house in 1984 and haven't touched it since? And they just done like the bare minimum, or have they updated it? So that's where you get where it goes from. You have a neighborhood of houses that are between $300,000 and $400,000. Well, an AVM can give you all the data about what's going on outside of that specific house, but it can't tell you really what's going on inside of that house. That's where the appraisal, it's sort of the collateral conundrum, I'd say.
That's just it's just fascinating, because it does seem that the industry is highly protected in as much as it's, because you get a lot of outside innovators, right? You get a lot of outside innovators that look at it and they're like, oh, there's easy pickings here. There's an easy opportunity to create innovation with the appraisal. And then once they start digging into it, they raise their capital. They come up with a really, you get a lot of Stanford guys who raise their capital because of their degree and their ideas, and they raise $2 or $3 million and they feel like they have a really good use case. So then all of a sudden they just hit the regulatory wall, the cultural wall, this is the way we've done business wall.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they get frustrated, and then the company pivots or it folds.
Yeah, it's just, you go back and you look at history and you look at 2008 and you look at any other times where you have things, and you're moving the needle times, like you might say, oh, the house has got to be worth in this range, we're pretty comfortable here. But when you bring loan to value into play, and a house can be, or if you have a portfolio of loans that are, very, very risk averse, that are very safe, but then you have pool loans where you're not that sure. You can't just do AVMs on those. I mean, you can't. You kind of need to see what you have there, especially if someone purchased the house with 5% down or 10% down, and you haven't, and that was 3, 6, however many years ago. So I mean, we are seeing a lot of AVMs and some different similar valuation products. They've gotten better, and there's certain, right now with HELOCs or HELoans or any sort of second liens going on right now. There's a fair amount. I was talking to top 10 lender this morning, top 5 servicer, massive company. Most of their, a huge portion of what they're doing right now, I think he said 55% of their loans they're doing right now are HELOCs, and they sort of have a cascade of products there depending on what the risk is of what they need. Some of them they only need an AVM. It's pretty simple. Some of them they need an enhanced AVM. Some of them need a full appraisal. It's just a matter of what their risk tolerance is, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's fascinating. How many of the would you say? Who doesn't use you guys? It seems like everybody does, use you guys to some degree or another. It seems like there's enough consolidation in the AMC business. There was an explosion of AMCs kind of in the early 2013, 14, 15, when a lot of these rules were initially being sort of rolled out with appraisal independence. And then it seems like the pendulum over the last couple of years maybe the last 3 years have really folded into consolidation. When is consolidation, would you say, been the primary years of consolidation for the AMCs? Like 2023?
Yeah, 23 was a huge year. 24 was still relatively big, but not as big. But there's still, I mean, it's tricky. And there's some pretty big deals that have happened somewhat recently. Some of them have been us, some of them have been others. Believe it or not, there's a lot of private equity firms that are always intrigued and interested. There, because it's so different. I mean, picture like a mortgage broker, a correspondent lender, a lender. They're not that valuable. They're not worth that much money. Like if you own if you own one of the top 10 retail mortgage lenders in the country, what's your value? Like what are you, okay, so you have great processes, you have great technology, but you have, 3,000, loan officers that work for you. There's nothing captive to keep them there. Your MSRs are worth money. AMC, our business it's intriguing for private equity and other entities that are looking for opportunities to make money because it's much more consistent. Our margins are much smaller, but they're probably a little bit safer, maybe a little bit more steady. So there's great opportunity for us, and there's great AMCs out there. But we're, again, it's sounding very cliche, but we're just trying to raise the bar. We're trying to take this to a whole different level in terms of really leveraging data, leveraging the resources, technology that we have, and really trying to put all of our team members to their highest and best use. How can we make it so that we are running at full capacity and we're getting our clients what they need as fast as they want or faster?
No, I love that. Is there any partnership opportunities for more on the front end? Who actually dictates? Is it primarily the lender that dictates the appraisal, the AMC, or is there any relationship there with the realtor to say is there realtor independence? Like, I know they can't say use this appraiser, but could they say, why don't we partner with the largest real estate agencies in the country with class valuation and every mortgage pre-qualification, every consumer that goes through that particular real estate firm, there's already a prearranged appraisal that could be ordered or that's sort of on standby because it's already been prearranged through class valuation. That way, when the mortgage lender comes in and say, look, we don't want to use your AMC. We're going to use this AMC. It's the largest in the nation. We already have a clean workflow. We already know, the panels of appraisals. Like, why would the lender drive that when it's really the real estate agent that's most connected to the house?
Yeah, good question. Because the lender's the one taking the risk. The lender's the one that's taking on that's loaning the money. And so we've looked for correlations for years, and there's some things that we do, but there's not a direct correlation. There's no influence that the real estate agent can have whatsoever in terms of what entity is going to do, provide the collateral, evaluation for property. The lender, because they're on the hook for the loan that they submit and that they're going to be selling to whoever they sell to, or whether they keep it themselves, they're essentially on the hook. That's the reason why they, it's crazy. Some lenders, keep it very strict, and they don't even use AMCs. There's still some lenders that it costs them money, but they manage internally the whole appraisal process. And I think some of them that works well for some of them have done it for a while, but they realize that it's costing them money, so they're going to move to a third party like an AMC. Some lenders keep a especially the more institutional ones, like the larger banks, they regulate it very, very heavily, and they use a very small 3 to 5 AMC partners that are well established, that are stable. But then there's a lot of lenders that we work with, we work with all the time, that have 70, 80 appraisal management companies signed up, because usually that happens when they're trying to appease the sales team. If you're a big retail lender and you're gonna bring on a new branch, you're gonna bring on a branch that's very successful from another company, and you're gonna bring them over under your umbrella. Well, if that branch that's coming on and joining your company says, hey, look, we've been using this AMC, ABC appraisals, we've been using them for 10 years and we need to bring them along, that lender that's acquiring them is going to essentially say, yeah, no problem, we'll get them signed up right away. So that's the tricky part, is that the lender does dictate all that, and they've really kind of cracked down on especially on the wholesale side. The rules have been in place for a while, but they've really started to enforce them much more recently. Like if you are a broker and you're working with UWM, for instance, that you can't just, even though UWM has a bunch of approved AMCs, you as the broker are not allowed to say, I want this AMC. The lender has to make that decision. It doesn't make a ton of sense.
My question is, but JT, my question is, if we know in any given market, a home that gets listed statistically is going to close within 68 days or something, or 75 days, right? Why wouldn't the moment the home gets listed, the appraisal get ordered? Like, why wouldn't, like, because the appraisals are good.
That's like an issue of who pays for it, right?
That's the problem, is who's paying for it. So it's the seller has nothing to do with that. You know, it's funny. We actually had for the first time in 15 years, I've never heard this before. We had a seller that was trying to call into our company, and the listing agent trying to call in. They wanted to do a rebuttal on the appraisal. They thought the appraisal came in too low, and we're like, well, it doesn't have to do with you. This isn't, the appraisal's not for you. It's for the buyer. You know, so that's the problem.
They couldn't get a rebuttal, could they?
No. That's the
right.
first
Like, that's not, you can't do it that way. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem there, is because essentially if you're listing a house on the market, Rick, so you know the listing agent's involved at that point, but you don't know who the buyer is going to be yet. You know, you have no clue. And you don't know what lender that buyer.
But why does the value of the house have anything to do with the buyer? I mean, that's the whole point of trying to create independence.
But wasn't that one of the pilots you were working on with Potter at Rocket to some degree? And like when we acquired ForSaleByOwner.com, you know, where we were in that position of owning the listing, I think we ran a trial with you guys and maybe one other company where we small numbers, but we tried to be like, what if we do pre-inspect, pre-appraise, pre-everything, and as long as you use Quicken Loans for the mortgage, it's free or something like that. You know, like there's probably some way you could structure it, but someone would have to take the upfront financial risk. I don't know. You've probably done more interesting things than that since then. But
yeah, of course.
But
that's still a conundrum that's hard to solve for, because whoever's listing the property, they could, you know, the seller, the listing agent, they could be totally on board. This is great. We're going to do this. Yeah, send someone out to scan it. But first of all, who's paying for? You know, it's like, we're going to go do the work. We're going to go inspect the property. And so it's inspected. And so as soon as we get a buyer and they want to buy the house, in theory, like, okay, we already have the data we need, so we can get an appraisal done. We can source an appraiser easily in a day or two and get the appraisal turned around and back to them. But we don't know who that buyer is yet. And we don't know what type of financing they're going to use. Maybe they're going to pay cash for the house. Maybe they're going to use some non-QM lender. Maybe they're going to use a lender who has strict guidelines, and they have AMCs that don't participate in that type of program, you know. So that's the biggest hurdle is, look, Rick, it's tough because it makes so much sense. Like, it's like, okay, logically, these are the steps and this is how it should follow. But there's that disconnect between the one who's listing, the entities listing the property, and the ones who are buying. And it's a very hard time correlating and crossing those.
How many employees do you guys have in your company?
We went into COVID with about 225. We came out of COVID with like 550. And we've grown since then. We've got about 750 right now. We do have, what's pretty cool is we have about 240 or 250 staff appraisers on our team that are our employees. They only work for us. That's a huge benefit for us because we can mobilize them as needed. If we have, I have it all the time, even like locally here, we have brokers who are like, hey, like on a Friday afternoon going into, or Thursday afternoon, like going into I think it was maybe between Christmas and New Year's, like they needed something in like less than 24 hours. Like it was like a rent schedule. It was something small, but it was like a piece, and like no one was going to be able to get it done. We could call appraisers. No one's going to answer the phone. Well, we have staff appraisers that work for us. We're able to just grab one quickly, get it done, have it back to them in 12 hours. So of that 750, about 250 are staff appraisers. But another 500 employees scattered all throughout the country.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's such incredible growth. And obviously, the network of appraisals, is obviously vast, and they're all just paid to their respective companies or whatever the case may be. But what about UWM? Like, I know UWM has a really incredible feature where they, in essence, pay for the appraisal on behalf of the broker. I think it is, right? So the broker, if you use UWM, and I think they have their own internal AMC to some degree, where I think where UWM is just eating the cost of that and paying the appraisal directly. Aren't they doing something similar to that?
Yeah. So what they have, it's not an AMC. For years, UWM used a handful of approved AMCs, Class B one of them. They started with 3, and they expanded to 5. Things got really busy in 20, 21, and 22. UWM wanted to have more options for their brokers. So so the difference between an AMC and an internally managed panel is AMC is for profit. Like if you own an AMC and you're a lender, you can profit off of that. Rocket owns the entity that Rocket falls under owns Amrock, and they do title, they do appraisal, and they can profit off of that. And those guys do a great job. UWM has an internally managed appraisal desk, essentially, and it's called Appraisal Direct. I think they probably have 300-400 people or so staffing that group, but they can't make any money off of that. That's the difference. So if in theory, if they charged the borrower $500 for the appraisal, in theory, all that money is supposed to go to the appraiser. And so that in theory works well, but most lenders don't want to do that these days because it can cost you a boatload of money if you have 300-400 employees, the tech fees, and it's so what UWM is, they give the brokers an option. Brokers, and I think essentially if a broker gets they're in the loan, they're in UWM system, it'll serve up to them when they get to the appraisal piece. It'll serve up to them, do you want to use Appraisal Direct, which is their internally managed panel, and if they say yes, then it puts them right into the portal, and the appraisal gets managed from there. If they say no, then it will route them to whoever their designated AMC that UWM has them set for. So we still do a lot of UWM's business, but Appraisal Direct does probably the vast majority of it, in which is fine. We'd love more of that business, but we work with all sorts of top lenders around the country. We really cut our teeth in the wholesale space, but over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've really diversified. We do a ton in the distributor retail channel. We do a ton of call center work. We have a credit union segment. We have a sort of a bank segment, and then we have more like a private hard money segment. So there's all sorts of different things we've expanded out into, and then there's a ton of alternative products. We've got some lenders that we do hardly any or no traditional appraisals for. We just do different types of alternative valuations for them for their individual needs that they have.
Yeah, I need to plug you into NFM for sure. I know that's something we've been wanting to do, and in fact, I'm gonna pull up the email right now to try to get that, to try to motivate that conversation. At least you can kind of know what it is that we're doing today, and how exactly we can see if there's an opportunity to kind of get you guys in there, and to differentiate yourself in a way that's.
We've got some really. I know we'll see you guys next week in Atlanta. We'll if we find a couple minutes, we'll show you kind of something really cool. It's it's pretty confidential, but it's pretty big. I would say game changer in terms of helping to create more efficiencies for lenders. So it'd be a good conversation.
Who's our rep? Who would be our rep? What's the woman's name again?
Amanda Callahan. She's great.
Amanda, that's right. Because what I could do is I think she's emailed me on my NFM email. What I'll do is I'll send an email out so that way there can be. Oh, here it is. And I'll coordinate that with Greg so we can kind of get that rolling. Because I think that'd be a good opportunity just to kind of understand the innovation. I think to some degree, you almost put the AMC on autopilot because it's there and it just happens, and you don't really think about creating efficiencies there unless there's a real problem and people start complaining about the AMC that you're using. And so I almost think that you guys being so far ahead of the curve with your overall the technology and just even the type of partnerships you can establish, which would be different than what a lot of companies, the local AMCs can do on a national scale. I think it's worthwhile us getting together.
Yeah, you'll see what we're talking about next week when we talk in person. But it's part of the problem is just in the mortgage industry, in the loan life cycle as it is. It's so ingrained in us that this is the way that it's been. This is the way that everyone does it. We think have found a couple areas where we started questioning that and saying, okay, this is the way it's always been, but we really need to keep doing that. So we've kind of talked to the right stakeholders and kind of all parts of the process, and we think we've found some really, really intriguing ways that candidly would knock 2 or 3 days off your loan cycle. If it's taking you 20 days on average to close a loan right now, some AMC comes to you and says, hey, we can take that 20 down to 17. whether you're working with them or not, you're going to listen. You're going to at least figure out what they're talking about, and is this real? What's there? And not only that, could we save you a couple of days? Could you save some money? Create some efficiencies, so and eliminate some redundancies. There's some redundancies out there in the process. So we're taking a much more holistic look at it, and again, kind of leaning into that real partnership thing is where we're starting to see a lot of value.
I love that. Any opportunity, Brock, on your end to be able to partner with Class Valuation, or is that mainly a B2B from a Class Valuation to a lender, and then you just happen to be part of that? Or is there a way that when somebody partners with NewZip, that Class Valuation is sort of the appraisal AMC of choice? I don't know. It seems like there's got to be
at this point, there's not anything kind of like imminent. I don't think that we need to do to partner. We're working with local realtors and lenders that are already gonna, in their own lane, have the right relationships. But I do think as we continue to go down the track of like further integration, pre-building more API connections for all the different steps in the process between both lending and real estate. Would love to get that the appraisal logic firing as soon as possible, and whatever JT is about to unveil next week about cutting a few days off closing cycles would be nice for us. It's like always the longest pole in the tent, but when we sit right between the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and the lender, so we see all those, anything that ever is a delay. And it's it's certainly not always the appraisal, but it's there's a lot of the speed to certainty on that is like so valuable to us and everyone else in the value chain. So
for sure,
we do see as like integrating with things like more of the steps in the process to obviously make it optional to the lenders we work with to use it or not.
Sure.
But to the extent that we're steering their kind of consumer experience, we probably could integrate there at some point.
Yeah, so is it forgive my naivete, but I saw you guys, like a year ago, you guys started partnering with NewRez. It's totally happen. Any relationship in the ownership structure, or is it just happens that you guys are both similar names, same number of letters? And
so happens. Yeah, we get that question a lot. NewRez is our biggest partner, by most measures, and so we show them on all kinds of our collateral and stuff, and we almost always get that question. It's like,
nice.
It's a very deep partnership, but
it's not a bad. There's nothing bad that could come from people.
They're unreal partners. I think maybe it helped me in the sales cycle that they thought we had similar branding and ideas.
We'd love to do, ironically, New Pen back when they pre-NewRez. New Pen was, we really cut our teeth with UWM, and then as we started to kind of, in 2010, 9, 10, 11, 12, as we started to grow, kind of landed a couple other lenders out there. And one of the first one, Plaza was one of them, but New Pen was one of them. Yeah. And it was going great. Like we did a great job for New Pen back then. So good that their old owner, Jerry Sciano, who's runs Spring EQ now. Yeah. We did such a good job that Jerry decided to start his own AMC and model it after us. East Street, but they've done so that took a chunk out of our business.
Flattery,
but there's only so many really, I would say, great, strong, stable lenders, like names out there. And NewRez is one of them. That great servicing portfolio that just well established, and you just kind of know they're not going anywhere except for up. So
they're making great strides in purchase. I mean, we're proud of it because we're right in the middle of it, but their purchase strategy is getting a lot more innovative and a lot more central as well. They've always been good at being a top servicer and refi and retail, but their direct to consumer purchase is who we mostly work with, and that's been growing very well.
You guys both going to the gathering next? Is it next?
Be there. Are you speaking, Rick?
Yeah, no, I not the gathering. I was going to do a panel with Julie on M&A, but they just reshuffled some of the.
Okay. But I will be there.
I'm going to be at the NBA New Jersey conference on Sunday and Monday, and then in Atlanta with you, JT, and then after that going right to the gathering in Colorado Springs.
I'm bummed because it was a great event last year. I love House and Wire and I love Clayton and what they're doing.
You're not going?
I'm not going because we're going. I got EPM tag, which is going to be awesome. But if anybody still needs tickets, we've got a handful left. But it's going to be great. So I got that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Get home Friday night, home with the family for a day. Then like 6 a.m. Sunday, I need to fly to LAX. Penny Mac puts on a really, really cool. It's the SLK Charity Classic. I think their founder or chairman that passed away a couple of years ago. They do a really, really nice charity I think for cancer research outing, and it's so cool that Penny Mac is such an amazing innovator in the industry. They're just they have, it says a lot for them that they have this big charity outing that's in honor of their chairman who passed away, and all these other lenders who are their competitors, go and play in it. KP will be there, and I know like guys like Sierra Pacific, American APMC, all those guys support it. It's a really cool thing. So it's our first time doing it. So looking forward to a nice reception on Sunday in Beverly Hills and a nice golf outing with Penny Mac and a bunch of their correspondent partners and some other lenders. So I'm going to miss the gathering, but at least I'll be golfing in LA. Could be worse, right? And I'm taking a red. I fly out there Sunday morning and golf and do the reception, and then Monday do the golf thing all day. Then I'm taking a red eye home, which I hate, from LAX to Detroit for my daughter's 8th grade graduation. So gotta find my work-life balance.
You guys got some crazy calendars going. Yeah, I'm only going to the gathering. No other travel next week. But
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. Have you ever golfed at the golf course in Manhattan Beach, connected to that one Marriott? It's a cool 18-hole course in Manhattan Beach, and it's just beautiful because you're so close to the ocean. It's right there. The West Drift. I think it's the West Drift hotel that's right there in Manhattan Beach.
Rick, jokingly but somewhat serious, I'm going to say the snobbiest thing that's probably ever been said on your podcast. I assume it's a public course, so I haven't. No, I'm kidding. I probably haven't played. No, I've become like a golf snob. I play. I don't know which course you're talking about, but I try to play these exclusive private courses basically because I don't like waiting. I can't. I've played like what's the one down in San Diego, where they do the PGA and everything like there, the U.S. Open. Torrey Pines is like 6-hour death march. There's you're waiting on every hole. So generally, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go play a real nice round. Hopefully, take some clients on Sunday at one of the top 30 courses in the country, which is really cool. Take some clients, have a good time. I've gotten bougie with the golf stuff. It's not cheap, but it's good life. It's good experiences.
That's hilarious. It's called the It's called the West Drift Manhattan Beach Golf Club in Manhattan, and I don't know West Drift 4. It's a 4-diamond. I don't know. A West Drift. No, that's the.
It needs more diamonds than that, Jake.
Well, it's a par 3. Oh, it's only 9-hole. Never mind. It's connected to the hotel. 9-hole par 3 golf.
That's like my max for golfing.
I'd let my wife play that one, but we have wine, dine, and 9 at the club tonight, which is a nice networking event. You play with the spouses, but 9 holes and have some wine and some dinner. But no, golf is funny because forever I first 10 years here my claim to fame that I thought was every year I played more rounds of golf outside of Michigan than inside because I was traveling. I'd go to these little mortgage events, things here and there. But it's actually been a really you find people, especially executives and people in sales from the industry that have some influence. If you find people that like golf, no one cares what you shot. It's really about the experience you have out there. So some of the best, I talk about relationships all the time and selling through relationships, and that you get some good people out on the golf course. Some of the best experiences I've ever had in the last couple of years have been people from the mortgage industry taking them golfing. I don't even win their business sometimes. Like some of these people that I'm really close with, they don't even work with us, but got great experiences. And it hopefully at some point down the road, there's the opportunity for us to work together. But, just enjoying the company you're with, the people you can spend time with, and, talk about how we were all stupid enough to get into this crazy ass industry,
Well, that's great. Well, good. Well, that's a wrap. I appreciate you being on the show, and looking forward to seeing you at a conference sometime soon.
Yeah, well, I'll see you next week, and Brock, we'll. I
don't know when. We'll have to compare notes on the next round of conferences.
We'll compare some notes. Rocket Mortgage Classic is next month. If any of you guys want to come in for it, we sponsor it. It's a great, really cool event, and it's a fun time. And so if you guys want to come into town for that, let me know. But and anything, any of the listeners have any questions at all, you guys can always give me jt@classvaluation.com. Even if you have some random appraisal question from some other company we didn't even do, I'm always happy to help. So
that sounds great, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, guys. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend.
Take care, guys.
Take care.